Being a strong and confident man is now considered to be a bad thing to liberals. It's toxic, they say. Doing manly things like knowing how to fix a leaking faucet or being able to change a flat tire is only perpetuating the patriarchy. Liberals don't want young boys to make ramps out of scraps of wood and have fun jumping their bikes off of them or building forts out in the woods like most kids in small Midwestern towns. Instead, they want them painting their nails and putting on makeup and wearing a dress. So-called hyper-masculine men in movies are truly evil to liberals because they not only reinforce gender stereotypes, but set an unrealistic and unachievable standard which boys are encouraged to strive for. In reality, it's good to have role models like us Gen Xers had in the 1980s and 90s, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Hulk Hogan, Sylvester Stallone, and other fitness icons. These men inspired an entire generation of kids to hit the gym and develop the self-discipline needed to build up their muscles, knowing that they would never be as buff as the movie stars, but they provided something to work towards and inspired skinny and weak kids that they could dramatically change their bodies with hard work, diet, and dedication. Today, however, liberals embrace sissy boys whose arms are atrophied from lack of use and poor diets and whose only exercise is playing with their phone or their Xbox. After President Trump addressed the Boy Scout Jamboree, an international meeting of scouts from around the world, Time magazine was worried that he was spreading toxic masculinity to future generations. Time complained that he focused on his victories and his power and his wealth, and they said that only privileged white men could follow in his footsteps and called on the Boy Scouts to do a better job of guiding children into adulthood. Sadly, the Boy Scouts have completely given in to the leftist agenda, though. First in 2015, when they lifted their long-held ban on gay scout leaders. Since their creation in 1910, their policy forbid those kinds of people from being local scout leaders, but in 2015, they went woke. Then, 5 years later, in 2020, they filed bankruptcy after a flood of lawsuits about widespread sexual abuse in the organization. The Boy Scouts don't even exist anymore as they did for over 100 years. Today, they're the gender-neutral Scouts and accept girls, and I'm sure any number of the other 57 supposed different genders liberals have come up with, because liberalism ruins everything. College campuses across the country are also trying to emasculate men by combating toxic masculinity through a variety of classes and programs. The Hollywood Reporter celebrated what they called the triumph of the beta male because the editors are uncomfortable with men doing manly things and being men. The new brand of sexy Hollywood is trying to promote is emasculated-looking, effeminate soy boys who don't know which way to turn a screwdriver in order to tighten a screw and who struggle to carry a gallon of milk from the refrigerator to the breakfast table because they're so weak. And I'm sure that you've noticed the plague of scrawny, effeminate males roaming the streets, particularly millennials and Generation Z. They're so weak that they probably couldn't even do 10 push-ups and likely struggle to put away the groceries because they're too heavy. Many are afraid to eat meat or drink milk because that perpetuates toxic masculinity too, and have opted for soy instead. Lots of soy, which is why we call them soy boys. Calling someone a soy boy is like calling them, well, let's just say a wussy with a P. I try to keep this channel family friendly in case there are any kids in the room, except the term soy boy is so much more accurate because it describes one of the scientific causes for their weakness and femininity. The term is so precise and so self-explanatory that it hurts the feelings of those with soy syndrome so bad that leftists have deemed it one of the most vile insults in the English language. A writer for the New York Times claimed that if you call someone a soy boy, you're basically a Nazi, because they said that it was the favorite insult of the alt-right, which, by the way, doesn't really exist anymore, and the once leader, Richard Spencer, who was largely just a creation of the mainstream media in 2016, because they have to have a new boogeyman every election year, voted for Joe Biden in the 2020 election, by the way. It's not just the New York Times, it's all the Operation Mockingbird outlets. The Los Angeles Times ran the headline, "Soy boy is the alt-right's new most biting insult," and said that in the imaginations of many among the alt-right, the Asian native soybean has come to symbolize multiculturalism and the demise of the meat and potatoes man. Actually, it has nothing to do with soybean symbolism. Instead, studies show that consuming soy boosts estrogen levels, which is why for decades personal trainers have warned against drinking soy protein shakes and instead recommend whey protein. Some of the beta males at BuzzFeed called the Try Guys decided to test their testosterone levels in one of their YouTube videos, and the results confirmed the obvious, that they shouldn't really be considered men. The average T-score of an adult male between the ages of 25 and 34 is around 600 nanograms per deciliter. The four supposed men, self-identifying men at BuzzFeed who tested their levels came back with results averaging from a low of 212 to a high of 363. For a frame of reference, A typical 85-year-old man has an average T-score of 376 nanograms per deciliter, which is higher than the highest score any of the men at BuzzFeed had, who are all in their late 20s and early 30s. In recent years, sperm count in Western men have been dropping dramatically, down by more than 50% over the last 40 years. Scientists say they don't know why, but maybe they're just afraid to admit the truth. Men are consuming too much soy, along with a variety of other chemicals finding their way into our food and water, which are obviously having adverse effects on people's minds and bodies. Men's Health magazine published an article looking into soy once titled, "Is this the most dangerous food for men?" It warned that it has the power to undermine everything that it means to be a man. Their investigation detailed the case of a retired U.S. Army officer whose estrogen levels were 8 times higher than normal for a man simply from using soy milk in his cereal every morning. He went to see a doctor because he was developing gynecomastia, man boobs, and had no sex drive anymore, and after going to several different doctors looking for answers, one of them suspected soy after examining his diet. And once he quit consuming it, his estrogen levels immediately began dropping back down to normal. Alex Jones is often mocked for this rant that he once did.
"I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that?"
You might have seen that clip, it's gone viral, but the evidence shows that's exactly what's happening. A study at the University of California, Berkeley found that the pesticide atrazine causes 10% of male frogs to mutate from males into females and chemically castrates 75% of the others. Some fish are now mutating because of the chemicals in the water and changing sex, and the males are becoming so feminized that they can't successfully breed. The London Independent reported that in some rivers, the male roachfish are developing female characteristics and even growing eggs, they believe, because of the high levels of endocrine disruptors or chemicals found in birth control pills seeping into the rivers. One professor involved in the study said that many of the male roachfish are so feminized that they don't even breed with the female fish at all. So Alex Jones was right again. It should be no surprise that chemicals in our food or water, or even the plastic food packaging or water bottles like BPA, bisphenol A, or bisphenol A, however you pronounce it, are having dramatic effects on our health. But it's just too politically incorrect to ask questions about whether they may be responsible for causing many boys to be such sissies. And you're especially not supposed to ask, what is causing so many people to be gay or transgender? It may come as a surprise to some, but behind all the jokes and sarcasm and occasional farting sounds I add to clips of CNN, I can be a very serious person. And if you like my monologues like this, then you should definitely read my books. So order Liberalism, Find a Cure, or The True Story of Fake News, or Hollywood Propaganda in paperback from Amazon.com, or download the ebooks from any of the major ebook stores, Kindle, iBooks, Nook, or Google Play. And of course, there's a link to the Amazon listing in the description below, so click it and head on over there and check them out.